Have you ever been doing fine? Maybe you even feel proud of yourself and you're content when suddenly out of nowhere, someone else's success kind of hits you sideways and you feel like a complete failure. 1 minute, you're grateful and you're doing your best. And then the next minute, you're lost in your head and you're spiraling. And you weren't even comparing until you were. And now what felt like enough suddenly feels like not even close to enough. Now you're wondering why they got the opportunity, why they got the platform, or why they got the favor and you're still waiting. It's disorienting and it can feel very deflating. And if you have been there lately, looking at someone else's progress and wondering, God, did you forget about me? Then you're in good company. If you have had that gut punch moment when you see somebody doing what you wish you were doing or doing it faster or better with less effort, then this episode is for you. Welcome to the Confident Christian Woman podcast. This is where we tackle questions about things that have been keeping you stuck in unfulfillment, dissatisfaction, or straight up misery. This is where you will find the help you need to move forward from confusion, fear, or self-doubt into joy, fulfillment, and peace. This is where we become confident Christian women who not only believe, we obey. And before we dive into today's questions, I have a gift for you that goes hand in hand with what we talk about here. It's called the Clarity Roadmap, and it's only a couple of pages long so that it's easy for you to digest, and it will help you to reflect, pray, and take action as you listen along. So grab it at the link in the show notes. Comparison is sneaky, right? It creeps in when you're minding your business, staying in your lane, and doing your best. And it can turn your confidence into envy. It can turn your peace into jealousy, and it can just completely erode your contentment and turn it into self-judgment. And it does it all without warning. So this episode is for you if you are stuck in a place where you know that you shouldn't compare, but you can't seem to stop. Your path is different, and you know that God's timing is personal. But when somebody else gets the thing that you've been praying for, or when their quote unquote arrival makes your progress feel insignificant, it's hard not to question everything. So today we are going to dig into the subtle and sometimes very messy and icky feelings that come with seeing other people move forward. And we're going to talk about also how to get your peace back when you feel like you are falling behind. So let me take you back to a moment that blindsided me. I was working as a manager in a corporate company. And honestly, I felt solid. I was proud of where I was. I wasn't where I ultimately wanted to be, but I was doing good work. Like I was doing a great job. I was earning my stripes and I was putting in the hours. I was usually the first one into the office each morning, first or second, not always the very first, but first, second, maybe third if I was late. Every morning, like every morning. And I worked 12-hour days and then I would take work home with me. And then one day, someone that I went to high school with joined the company. Same year, same class, but she came into the company as a vice president. Now remember, I was a manager at the time. So she wasn't my boss, but she was at least 3 management levels above me. She was in the rooms that I wasn't invited into, and she was part of the conversations that I only heard about after the fact. And suddenly my I am doing well feeling turned into, oh my gosh, I am so far behind. I won't lie, I didn't like her. Like, I did not like her. But it was not because of anything she did to me, because she didn't do anything. She did nothing to me. She was actually very pleasant. She was just living her life and she was just doing her thing. But I didn't like her. This woman who had been perfectly fine with in high school. Like, we were fine in high school. We're in the same class. We got along great. But I didn't like her because I was jealous. Although I didn't call it at that time, but that's what it was. Instead, I told myself that she hadn't earned it. I told myself that she strolled into the office on the dot of 9 o'clock in the mornings, and then she left before 5 in the afternoons, and she didn't work nearly as hard as I did. And I was angry. So I was jealous and I was angry because I'd been sacrificing and grinding and pushing, and I still wasn't where she was. I had shown up and I'd gone above and beyond. So why was she so much further ahead than me? And here's what made it even worse. I didn't even want her job. I didn't even want her job. It really wasn't about the role. It was really about what the role symbolized, which for me at the time was success and recognition and arrival. And, probably thinking about it now, I think also some worthiness. But in me telling you that story, can you see how comparison doesn't really even need you to want what they have or want what it looks like they have on the surface? It just needs you to believe that they have more than you do and that you are losing. And here's another truth that I didn't want to admit at the time. I had no clue what it cost her to get to where she was because I didn't know her story. I didn't know a thing about her story. Since we left high school, I hadn't seen this girl, right? So in the years before in the years between when we left high school and when she popped up at this company that I was already working at, I don't know what she did. I don't know anything about what happened in those years, what she did, what happened to her, none of that. But I let what I thought I saw dictate how I felt about my own journey. If you have been there too, scrolling through somebody else's life online or watching them get chosen or promoted or celebrated, you probably know that feeling. It's a sneaky kind of resentment. The shame of being jealous, because you feel jealous but you also feel ashamed of being jealous, right? And then there's also the frustration of wondering, why not me? Am I not doing enough? When is it my turn to arrive? And do you want to know what else? Years later, I was a vice president in another company that was even larger, like incomparably larger than the one where she was a vice president. And I was miserable. Why? Because that was never my path to walk. I had chosen to walk that path because it was what I was told that I should want. Isn't that ironic? So I was there being jealous over her, what she had. And then when I got it, I was miserable. Well, I hope you can see from that story that comparison is a thief. It's a thief. It will steal your joy, your peace, your contentment. But beyond being a thief, it is also a distraction. It pulls your eyes off the path that God laid out for you. And instead, it glues your eyes to a path that's not yours to walk. So, how do you stop? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But first, here is a passage that will check you if you're spiraling in comparison. It's Galatians 6 verses 4-5, and it says, "Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. These verses are inviting you back into your lane. They're about stewardship of the assignment that God has given to you. We often think of stewarding what God has given to us only in relation to money. But I have found that it actually applies to everything, and I mean everything. It includes stewarding our health, it includes stewarding our bodies, and it includes stewarding our assignment. All of those things are resources that God has invested in us, and He has given us a responsibility to steward all of it, right? And so these verses are about stewarding the assignment that God has given to you. It reminds you that your measure of progress isn't supposed to come from what somebody else is doing. It comes from how faithfully you're walking out your assignment, because, spoiler alert, God is not grading you on somebody else's curve. You have your own assignment, your own timing, and your own path. And God is not going to ask you to give an account for how quickly somebody else moved. He is going to ask you what you did with what He gave you. Do you see how comparison is a loser's game? You can't win it. You can never win it, because somebody is always quote unquote better than you, or faster than you, or further ahead than you. So what's the point of playing that game at all? Like, it doesn't even make sense to play. And let me pause here to call out something, because if we don't call it out, we'll keep calling it only comparison when it's actually something deeper. Sometimes comparison is just a symptom, and the real root is fear. In fact, I would venture to say that most of the time, if not all of the time, the real root is fear. It's not just comparison. Comparison is just a symptom on the surface. If you dig further down, you'll find that there is some fear. We're talking about like lots of different fears, like fear of being overlooked or forgotten, which might sound like, if they're getting the spotlight, maybe I never will. We're talking about fear that your hard work won't be enough, which might sound like, I've been grinding away at this and I've been sacrificing, but what if it never pays off for me? We're talking about fear of not mattering, which might sound like, if I'm not as far ahead as them, do I even count? We are talking about fear that success is scarce, which might sound like, if they have it, maybe there's none left for me. We're talking about fear of being permanently behind, which might sound like, what if I have missed my moment and I will never catch up? Oh gosh, I have struggled with that one. That has been one for me. Since I had that big life flip change, like 11 years ago now. And I restarted my whole life. It was like a whole reboot. And a couple years in, I found myself thinking, I am so far behind. I will never make it to where I want to be at this point. Like, I was really afraid of that. That takes a lot of inner work to release that lie. Because that's assuming there's a finish line. Anyway, and one more fear I'm calling out at this point is fear of not being seen by God, which might sound like, why are they getting the breakthroughs when I've been faithful too? And worse, they're not even a Christian. Oh gosh, if we don't call out these fears, they will start running the show. So if you have been caught up in comparison lately, I think that you need to ask yourself not only, why am I comparing, but also go a little deeper and ask, what fear is driving this feeling, right? So speaking of what you're asking yourself, let's do some mental reframing as we always do. Instead of asking, why is everybody else ahead of me? Or when is it my turn? Let's try asking these questions instead, which are, in my opinion, more useful and will help you to come up with better, more better answers that help you to get back into forward motion, right? And to help you not get stuck in comparison, not get or stay stuck in comparison. All right, so here we go. What fear is comparison waking up inside of me? When you face the fear, when you name it and face it, you can deal with it. Where have I started equating visibility with value? Like, because they're seen or more recognized, then they're more valuable or they're more important or they're more worthy. So investigate that a little bit. What story am I telling myself about their success and my worth? Where have I tied my identity to external, other people driven milestones instead of to eternal ones? What am I assuming about their life that I don't actually know? Like how I was assuming a lot of stuff about that woman's life. I had no clue. I had zero facts, but I had so many assumptions that I used to fuel and feed my jealousy as I, was comparing myself to her. And also, where do I need to return to gratitude for what God is doing in me, even if it's not so easy to see it from the outside? Now, let me just give you a little warning that comparison tends to distort how we see others, right? Like I was seeing that woman, like I had all kind of, bad views of her. I was seeing her as a bad guy. She wasn't. She's perfectly nice and pleasant. But on top of this distorting how we see others, it also distorts how we see ourselves. So fear is bubbling up that says, what if I never get as far as they have gotten? Here is something to think about that might cause a knot in your stomach at first, but really allow yourself to think about it. What if you were not meant to get to where they're at? What if that's the truth? What if you don't get as far as they have? Will you still choose to be obedient to what God has called you to do and to who He has called you to be, even if you never get as far as they have? That's a serious question, and that's a serious decision that you will need to make. In fact, we all need to make that decision. No matter what anyone else's achievements look like next to yours, that is a decision that you'll have to make. I have had to make that decision. And I think if you are stuck in comparison now, then it's a decision you're going to have to make as well. So here's your action step for this week. Write a list of what you have accomplished in the last 12 months. And I'm talking about not necessarily only like at work or wherever it is, whatever sphere of life it is in which you are finding yourself comparing yourself to someone else or to other people. But I'm talking emotionally, spiritually, relationally, professionally, like in all the ways, in every area. Write a list of what you have accomplished in the last 12 months. And then write down one way in which you have grown that nobody has clapped for, but that God sees. Doing this, taking this action step will help to pull your eyes back to your lane, and it will validate and value your growth, even if it doesn't get you a title or a round of applause from people. All right? So maybe you can also, I'm going to give you a prayer prompt now, and you can use it to open up a conversation with God about this issue this week. If you want to go deeper and like really press in and talk to Him about this. Lord, I confess that I've been looking at their path instead of walking mine. Help me to let go of what doesn't belong to me, which is maybe like their vision and their dream, and give me fresh joy in the race that you have called me to. This it will help to bring your focus back to your story and your journey and not someone else's. All right, let's land this plane. You feel this thing of comparison, and that's totally human. You will feel that sometimes, but you don't have to let it keep stinging you. Actually, let me pause here for a second to say something that just popped into my mind, and I think the Holy Spirit gave it to me to say. If you're feeling this thing of comparison, a lot of times, as I said earlier, it's not the material thing that they have necessarily, okay? Usually it's an emotional need that you feel that you want to have filled, that you are thinking is being filled through the thing that they have. You understand what I'm saying? So for example, in my case, with that woman who I was looking on being jealous of, I didn't want her role. I thought at the time I did, but I didn't actually want her role. What I wanted was the recognition and the feeling of being valued and the feeling of worthiness to be in certain echelons, right? In certain rooms. I was looking for an emotional need to be filled. If you are feeling that thing of comparison, use it as it's like an alarm bell to say there's a need under here that you think can be filled by what it is they have that you think you want. What is that need? Like if you identify the need, then you can ask God to help you, to fulfill that need for you, to satisfy that need for you. Right? All right. So let's get back to landing the plane. All right. So, while you're over here comparing your life to someone else's, God is not comparing you to anybody else. Like He does not compare us. Okay. He does not compare you to anybody else. Do you know what He requires of you? He requires you to be obedient to what He has called you to do, and He requires you to be obedient to who He has called you to be. That is the yardstick that you need to pay attention to. Not what somebody else is doing and how much they have achieved and what they have. What you are called to and who you are called to be, that is the yardstick that you need to care about. That's the yardstick that I need to care about. So even if your pace feels slow, even if your path feels or doesn't feel totally clear yet, as long as you're walking in obedience to Him, you're fine. You're fine. The finish line that God has in mind for you is not based on who got there first. It's based on your faithfulness in following Him. Okay? So shift your eyes from that other person's race and come back to your own God-appointed, God-directed lane. If today's episode stirred something in you, whether it was hope or clarity or even a little nudge from God, don't forget to download the Clarity Roadmap. It's a free guide designed to give you a quick jumpstart out of feeling stuck. You can print it, pray through it, or use it as a journaling companion. Remember, you don't have to have all the answers. You only need your one next step. And this free roadmap is a great place to start. To get it, all you need to do is click the link in the show notes.